Okay, is Pat here?
Wow, the network is really bad. Can you guys hear me? Please just indicate if you can hear me so I can go on.
Yes, we can.
Please let me know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Please just let me know
Yes,
in the
we
comment
can hear you.
section if you can hear me.
What is
Like
that?
the network is really bad.
For sure, you do the joke. Yeah, that's not about me.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Inspired Women of One Power Woman series. Welcome everyone. Welcome. Okay. Thank you. Okay, just before we get on, I would like to share the ground rules so we can all concentrate. The ground rules for this webinar would be number one, but it should please microphone and turn your also microphone and your video until when you have to speak, and it's just the speakers that would be speaking. If you have a question for us, please drop it in the comment section. We would respond to it. If you have to share something or say something, just drop it in the comment section and we'll respond to it. So turn off your microphone, turn off your camera if you are not one of the speakers, please. Thank you. Another ground rule I would like to share, which would help everybody, is to grab a very comfortable seat. Get comfortable, relax, get a cup of coffee, tea, water, whatever works for you. Get really comfortable. Okay. Welcome everybody. My name is Patience. Ehi Odoka. And I hope you guys can still hear me. It's been going off and on. I don't know. Can everyone still hear me, please? Can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yes, please, I can hear you.
Yes, Pat, we can hear you loud and clear.
Can everyone hear me? Hello. Okay. Oh, great. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just jump into it and then, okay. So the Inspired Women. Okay, thank you. So this is, okay. Okay, thank you. So this is the 4th edition. We've done 1 to 4. So
Mine the one has a problem or what? Can't I get me any jacket in my room that you like? I don't like this one. I'm wearing it.
a conversation on sex. Let's talk about sex. We also had a conversation on developing an entrepreneur mindset and digital thinking. And so far, we've gotten amazing feedback on how our community have been able to apply the principles and the lessons from this conversation.
Where's your mother bailed you out of jail? Yeah. Why didn't you call your father? He's a big spender. He left town. That's why they have phones. That's what Lindsay Company said. The car is on the way. You know what last time? You know what last time a car company said that to me?
Hello everyone. Down. I have phone. I couldn't use my system anymore. I don't know why it keeps going off. Just let me know if you can hear me now, please. Please let me know if you can hear now.
Yes, I can.
We can hear you.
Please let me know if you can hear me and see me. Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with my system or if it's a network. I don't know what's happening. But thank God we're on now. So I will just get right on to it. My name is Patience Ehiodoka, and I'm excited to be welcoming you. I'm so sorry you had to wait for about 11 minutes for us to settle in. I'm really, really sorry, and I apologize on behalf of my team and me. Really sorry. So today we'll be having a conversation on the future of work for employees. How ready are you? And for me, I really like the fact that the conversation is not just centered on the employees, but then also the employers. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the lesson I would learn and looking forward to strategies on how to position myself. Okay, someone says I can't hear you. Can everybody still hear me? Wow, this is so nice. Oh no. Should I go on or just switch to Winifred if it's something? Maybe it's my phone or my system or my network.
We can hear.
I don't delay everybody.
We can hear you very well.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
Hi everyone, can you guys still hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Hear you.
Wow. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Go on, we can hear you. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, good afternoon,
evening.
everybody. All right, good afternoon. We're almost going into the evening. My name is Winifred Mena Ajakovi. Can you all hear me? And I'm going to ask this just this one time.
Yes, we can.
All
Yes,
right,
we
great.
Yes, we can.
All right, great. I guess this is just sort of leads us into what we want to talk about, the future of work, where we're all having to depend on technology. My colleague Pat appears to have a problem with her connection, so I would like to step in at this point so that we can get started, because I see we have about over 100 people already connected. So Pat, if you're able to join us again, please we'll get a chance to hear all about IWOW within the conversation, but I'd like to start at this point because I know that I have my esteemed panelists waiting and we have our really eager audience waiting. Thank you everybody so much for joining us. This is what keeps us going as IWOW. My colleague Pat was trying to introduce the IWOW network and all that we do. We've had several sessions in the month, and this is one of such in the series. So today we're talking about the future of work for employees. And I have in the virtual room a really team of powerhouses, esteemed people that are how do I put it, very experienced in the area of what we want to talk about. So I would like to introduce, please allow me the protocol of introducing each of these people because they're really people who have achieved a lot, and it's only fair to give honor to whom honor is due. And also because we want our audience to realize the extent the IWOW network went to handpick the people that will discuss today's topic. So I have three beautiful women outside of myself who will be serving as the moderator today. And then we have a gentleman in our midst. So today, I am going to break the rule of ladies first and say the gentleman first because he's outnumbered in our midst today. So please allow me to introduce Jimmy Tewe. Jimmy is the CEO of the Jimmy Tewe Company. He's an accomplished public speaker across Africa and actually internationally. He's graced several platforms within and outside of Nigeria, including the Harvard Business School. He's been recognized as one of the 100 most influential Nigerians and has won several awards. He's done a huge amount of work in human resource management. So we're really looking forward to tapping from his wealth of knowledge today. Jimmy has also built several mentorship platforms like the National Youth Entrepreneurship Empowerment Summit. He's an excellent communicator. He's a coach and a certified member of the American Association of Career Coaches, and he's an author of about 7 books in different aspects of human resource management and career-related issues. Jimmy, you're welcome. I hope you have joined, and we'll get to you shortly. Next,
yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. Next, if this was our former world, we would have said, this is where we would have said, can we have a round of applause? But we're learning to do things differently. So Jimmy, you're fully and duly acknowledged by all of us. Next, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Funke Amobi. I'm going to start in a slightly different way. Funke is a chorister, which is probably her most cherished service that people don't know about. She's been in the Trem Choir for years. Funke is a Chevening Scholar. She's a multiple award winner, global finalist of the Professional Achievement Award in the UK, and so many. HR Leader of the Year. She won the Employee Engagement Award last year in South Africa. She was part of the top 100 corporate women recognized for bringing distinct value to the workplace. She currently serves as the country head of human capital for Stanbic IBTC. Funke is a chartered fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development UK and a member of the CIPM, which is the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management Nigeria. And she was recently appointed as companion status, which is the highest recognition in the world of HR development in the UK. And she's actually the first Black African woman to get that, if my sources are correct. So Funke, you're very welcome. She's done a lot of work in the future of work And I think that we'll be learning a lot from her today. Funke, are you here?
I'm here. Thank you very much, Winifred. Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'll go on to my next speaker. In no particular order, I want to introduce Mrs. Nkiru Olumide Ojo. Nkiru has had several recognitions, such as Leading Woman in Marketing and Communication, Marketing Personality of the Year, sometime in 2017. She's a brand journalist of Nigeria's award for Leading Marketing Personality. Here is the published author of The Pressure Cooker, Lessons from the Woman at Work. She does a lot of write-ups on the social media platform for the working girl, advising on career. Nkiru is married. She's the founder of the Lighthouse Network, which does a lot of mentorship and building program for women. Nkiru, are you in the house, please? Thank you. Your mic is a little bit faint. Okay.
Oh, is it? So it's hello, Winifred. Hello, Team iWow. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the discussions.
Great, thank you. And we can hear you better now. That sounds great. Nkiru is currently the regional head of marketing and communications in one of the strong, big financial institution services in South Africa. And then I'm sure we all know that if it's not legitimate, you will end up in jail. If you don't get your legals right, you'll be in trouble. So I have to introduce the legal luminary in our midst. Some of these are speakers I'm privileged to call friend and sister, and this is one of them. So please, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Mrs. Chinyere Okorocha. She's a partner and head of sectors at the prestigious Jackson Etty and Edu, one of the top law firms in Lagos, Nigeria. Her role, beyond being a partner in her firm, extends to strategic visioning for the firm, and she heads several sectors within her firm, including the health sector, where she's already made a lot of inroads in that area. She has a lot of years of experience. Chinyere is considered an authority in intellectual property. She's written many published and unpublished articles, and she's also an international conference speaker. She serves on the board of the Nigerian Bar Association as the vice chair of the Women Forum, council member and treasurer, NBS section on business law, chairperson of the Intellectual Property Committee, and so many other responsibilities in the legal area. Chinyere, we're really excited to have you today. Are you in the house, please?
Yes, I'm here. I'm delighted to be here. Hello, everybody, and good evening.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm happy to tell you that now we are over 150 in the virtual room. I extend a warm welcome to all our audience. I would have said all our viewers, but I realize that it's all our listeners in our new reality. So the topic for today, we've lost a bit of time, so I'd like to make it quick. The topic for today is the future of work for employees. How ready are we? And that is a really pertinent question, especially with different countries and nations and states announcing the ready to go back to work, ready to go back to life, ready to open up our doors. There are different reactions. Okay, so there are different reactions. I understand that Ghana had indicated, in fact, they had actually opened up their country after having shut the doors for about a week, but then had to quickly close back again to go and re-strategize. We've had a couple of states in the US, the state of Georgia, open up and realize no. And then in Nigeria, for those of us who are in Nigeria, we've just had an announcement that we're going to be going back by the first week of May. And so I want to paint a scenario for us. So come first week of May, and the lockdown is canceled and everybody has to go back. What happens when you get back to the office? What do you expect? As an employer of labor, as an employee, back to normal, what has changed? We take a moment to visualize that. And I'm going to be asking our panelists to discuss this for us. But before we start, I want to start with a general question to sort of give us the background or the context to what we're talking about. So I want to ask about the most obvious thing. What is really the future of work for employees? what do we see? And I'm going to ask Funke Amobi to start on that. But before I get to Funke, I'd like her to start. And what we're talking about is what is really the future of work for employees, but beyond employees, also for employers. And I'd like Jimmy Tewe to present the employer's perspective. Jimmy is the CEO of the Jimmy Tewe company. So I'd like you to please, in addition to whatever else you'd like to say from the employee side, I'd like you to respond from the employer's perspective. So in no particular order, my question goes to Mrs. Funke Amobi to please share with us what you really think is the future of work for employees as a preliminary to the topic, to going into the full conversation.
Thank you very much, Winifred. And again, I'm very excited to be here. And that's because, you know, I like it when we're the congregation of people who are dealing topical subject matter. I've been an advocate of the future of work in the last couple of years, passionately and consistently preaching the message of the future is upon us, the future is coming, the future is here. I'm so excited that the message has changed phenomenally across the world in the last couple of months, and the recent, all we know as pandemic change across the world. The future of work has suddenly come upon us. So here is where we begin to understand what the future of work is. So the future of work is very simple. Is work defined as what we do, where we do it, who we do it with, where we do it, and how we do it. And is that work absolutely constrained by what we call rapid advancement in technology and artificial intelligence? So the rapid advancement in technology and AI and all of the related semantics, robotics, artificial intelligence, all of the related data advancement shapes work, what we do, how we do it, who we do it with, where we do it, and with whom we do it. So it's great, is a future defined by the impact of technology on work that we do. Who does the work? Machine, man. Where is the work done? No boundaries, no barriers erected anywhere. Huge implications with what I've said, the future of work for the employee and the employer, because the employee then begins to imagine work in a different construct. If work can be boundaryless, across borders, done anywhere, the thrust of mobility, then the employee begins to imagine a different experience when he or she is thinking work. So we talk about trends that shape the future of work, and the trends have a lot to do with many things beyond technology. But technology and its rapid advancement is by far the most important and the strongest of all the trends that have shaped the future of work, which I like to say, the now of work, the new normal, and the reality that we have today.
Okay, thank you very much, Funke. You raise a very important point, you know, about the trends that shape work and all, but I want to hear from everybody, you know, I want to hear from all our other speakers in terms of what their perspective is. So can I please ask Nkiru Olumide Ojo to please speak to this point we've raised from the employee's perspective?
Hi, thank you, Winifred. I mean, it's quite an interesting subject, even more so as we are looking at it or thinking about it from the employee's perspective. And I suppose the first thing that would come to you as an employee is what is changing in your environment. And it's also with your environment, what are the trends, what is driving, you know, all the change. And I think that if we did the immediate, the first thing we'll think about is what has happened to us all, which is working remotely. I'll quickly put a caveat to say that I know that for a few sectors, this is no big deal. Also having worked in the telco, people like the telcos and a few of the older oil and gas are perhaps a bit used to this. But for a lot more companies, it is new. And therefore, if we say, first of all, what is the driving factor? What are the trends? And I suppose the next thing would be, what are the skills that are required? And obviously, there's a big piece of the skills that the World Economic Forum decided or has said is relevant for the future of work, which is obviously critical thinking, creativity, and all of that. That's fine. That's great. But we'll just move that a bit forward and just pack it on the side so we can come back. But I think in the immediate, the type of skills that are required from an employee's perspective is one, adaptability. because a lot is changing and you really can't be holding onto your cheese as you knew it. And that cheese has moved. And I suppose on you as the employee is, how are you adapting to that change? So I think the first skill that we require, just in terms of the changes that we're experiencing, is adaptability. And I would very quickly say the second skill that you require at this time would be communication, which is a bit weird because you can argue and say, oh, I've got all the tools, the WhatsApp tools and all the other tools, email, Teams, etc., and perhaps even Zoom. But I think that the challenge of communicating without physical contact, or even the skill of communicating without physical contact, is something that we all need to deliberately hone at this time. So I'll pack it up here for now, and then obviously we'll come back to unpack the bigger details of the future of work. Thanks.
Thank you, Kiru. For the benefit of our audience, she's mentioned two top skills, adaptability and communication. When we dig deeper into the topic of discussion today, we'll hear more. So can I please ask Mrs. Chinyere Okorocha to please lend your voice to the conversation?
Okay, I have unmuted. Okay, so focusing on the employee, without prejudice to what everybody else has said, I think if I were an employee at this time, I might exhibit some level of fear for my future. Mm-hmm. Because the truth of the matter is a lot of companies are in distress. They're relying on their previous reserves of capital and cash. They're looking for receipt. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sure.
Yes, trying to bring in monies that clients have been owing, and then really now isn't the time to expect them to pay. There are job cuts all over the place. You know, the aviation, we heard in the news recently that the aviation industry has cut 90%. That was the one I heard the other day of their staff. Hospitality and hotels are cutting staff. The service industry, really, in professional services industry, which is where I belong, you know, it's not thriving at the moment. So if I were an employee, I would be thinking about where my next meal is going to come from. Will my firm be able to sustain my salary? And how do I add value? How do I add value to my organization so that at the point when they're thinking about those cuts or, you know, retrenchment, as you like to call it, that I won't be the first person to come to mind. Yeah. So definitely I need to be able to adapt to the changing situation, like has been mentioned. I have to be resilient. I have to also be very, very innovative to come up with ideas that are going to set me apart from everybody else in the organization, such that when they're looking for the new skill sets that will move the firm into the post-COVID era, I'm definitely going to be one of them. And then I think I need to trust. I need to be able to trust my organization to weather the storm and come out right on the other end.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And you touched on something very key, which is the post-COVID era, because that is really the fear, right? And the biggest change that has happened to us this year. So Jimmy, can I please ask you, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you're an employer of labor. And I think Chinyere has thrown a jab at you by saying that, you know, the employees are probably scared for their jobs now. So please respond from the employer's perspective. Jimmy, you need to unmute. Great.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it was muted from behind. So thanks again for this opportunity. First and foremost, I feel very privileged amongst many exceptional women out here and doing amazing things. So thank you very much for the opportunity. From an employer's point of view, I think I've spent the last few weeks speaking to business owners at different organizational levels. I mean, in terms of the scale of business. And I think that the challenges they face are pretty common. But what I think is the biggest thing that everybody has been thrown into is basically a need to innovate, either first and foremost to survive or to thrive. It's not optional. You can't just sit down and expect COVID period to pass, and then we can act. There's no business as usual. I mean, the business as usual is spoken to us about. This is the time for it. And because of that, the rate of acceleration of change or the need for innovation has increased significantly. And like I said, there is one of two things. You're either innovating to survive or innovating to thrive. Now, because of that, I've had to do a bit more study around innovation. Basically, for my own business, we've done quite a lot in this period. It's been one of our best periods in this time. And just looking back, I realized that a few things or key elements that basically, have driven the amount of success that we've had. I think that from an internal point of view, clearly knowledge is key. So we had people, for example, that CEOs who said to me that, Jimmy, these guys have been coming to me to talk about how to automate my business, but I never really paid attention to them. I'm the one calling them now, and they're the ones now calling the shot and giving me very high figures and all that. And so the level of knowledge that's required, and these are key elements around innovation. So obviously what you knew is no longer sufficient for what you need to do now. And so for employers of labor, there's a lot of, think about it, heads of HR, have to come up with very innovative ways to be able to manage, because you can't just say, for example, you spoke about the airline industry laying off 90% of their staff, but there's going to be a problem. Let's assume, for example, that they're able to create a vaccine, and then just like Ebola, they're able to solve it. How do we make sure we have not lost our best talent in that process? So there's knowledge, there's a lot of imagination in being able to create new policies, new programs that are able to keep the best talent. And of course, maybe even let go of the ones we've been trying to let go of all this period. And of course, maintain the attitude and culture of the organization such that we're able to forge through a time like that. I think that the biggest challenge for employers also is to keep their staffs from being discouraged, because you cannot innovate in discouragement. It's impossible, literally speaking, and all that. So, somebody spoke about communication. That is very key at this point in time. And I think that, again, it's also understanding the ecosystem in which your business has been operating in. Essentially, there are a lot of new things going on. And so you should make sure that you're not trying to play catch up, but you have caught up on one end, but you're also able to understand where your industry is going and hopefully be one of the key players in the future. I think the last thing that is there that people are, and this is another key element of innovation, is resources. To be able to see, how do I leverage what I have? One of the things I had to do, for example, is that I have one of my key staff. He was just a regular guy, but I knew that he had a bit of technology skills and all that, but I really did not know he had so much. And just that guy, not only have I engaged him, I've increased his pay during this period, and all those kind of things. So we have to be able to look at our resources to say, how can we leverage our resources we have at hand to be able to innovate? But like I said, I think that the major challenge and that the major need we need to respond to is the need to innovate and innovate fast.
Great. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Thank you. So you all talked about change is clear. Definitely our universe has changed. The fear of job losses is real. There's a desperate, definite need for new skills, very important. So we want to move into the session proper, and for the benefit of everybody who's logged on and connected, we will not be, the way we've planned it is that first of all, let me let you know that we went out and we asked our community, HR people, employees as well, what would you like to know from our panelists? So we got a couple of questions, and we're going to give the questions to all our panelists to answer. Because this is a webinar or this is a Zoom meeting, we may not be able to take live questions. So first of all, be assured that we're asking the questions that you want to get the answers to. And then we're looking at the comment section, and in the course of the session, we will pick out a few questions as well, time permitting, for them to address. And the way we're going to run is that when I call on any of our esteemed panelists to speak on a particular question, after he's done, somebody else will contribute to that, and then probably take one question from the comment section, if I can pick out one, before we move to the next one, so that we make sure you get the best value that you can within the next 1.5 hours or so. So my question, I'm going to start with Jimmy now. I think we've effectively discussed the background so that it leads us into the core of what we want to talk about. And Jimmy, I'm going to just give it to you as we want to know it. And after that, I'm going to request Mrs. Okorocha to please add to what you've said. So Jimmy, my question is, how has the pandemic changed work culture? Remember, we're thinking about the future of work. So what do you think this pandemic has changed?
All right, thank you very much, Winfred. I think that, I mean, in many dimensions, but you've spoken about culture, so let me stick to that. I think, again,
No,
the
you
big
can
change.
add anything else if you'd like to. You want to get
all
all
right,
this.
that's fine. I mean, let's start with culture. I think that, again, the biggest challenge has been, you know, with remote working, for example, how do we ensure that we maintain a very high performance culture? And in fact, I've had a number of HR people reach out to me to say, how do you, you know, measure performance, you know, remotely while people you can't see, you know, I mean, we see them, we are pushing them to work. Now we can't see them. How to ensure that they're working in that regard? And of course, you know that culture basically is like the macro effect of micro cultures. And what I mean by that is this, that again is dependent on either it's driven from how everybody behaves or how the leadership in the organization behaves. And that's what I've seen in my own experience. Now, what I would say is this, that in terms of culture, I think that what we've seen is that there's been a lot of drop in performance. And the reason is because we are entering new waters. And so people are still trying to adapt to the new realities that we actually have. However, I see in certain industries where they're very intentional about it, is that they're able to still maintain and manage culture. So for example, I know people that, you know, still have to respond to clients. How do we ensure that our clients are still enjoying the same experience they had pre-COVID and now, during the COVID period? So again, I think that from culture, a lot has happened, but I think that organizations that are being very intentional about driving culture, even during this period, are probably getting, you know, better results. The other thing I would like to say is, you know, tied to this, you know, from an organizational point of view, is that there's such a huge need for value at this point in time. What I mean by value is not just effort, but real results. I can bet it with you that many CEOs don't have all the answers. And so the employees that will thrive in this period are the employees that are able to clearly add value, you know, from the premise or the point of view of the decision makers in the business. One of the things I've said is this, that, you know, for people that are employed, it's not the time to keep quiet and it's not the time to make noise. It's time to add value. And what would that mean is basically understanding the current challenges your business is facing, familiarizing yourself with that, and being able to creatively prefer solutions and not just suggest, but be involved in delivering it. I think that is what makes it different, because people are misinterpreting, thinking that we're just saying, just come and send your boss, sir, these are the 7 things you should do. No, it is basically saying that these are the things you can do, and I'm willing to be able to try this, because sometimes there's a lot of trial, errors, and successes going on at this point in time. It usually happens in periods like this. And so people need to be able to add what I call visible value to the organizations where they work in. The other thing I say, to be able to innovate very creatively, is to be able to have a very high degree of awareness for organizations and for the industry. So for employees, and I know that we have both of them here, be aware of what your organization is going through. And for organizations, don't just look at the business as it is, look at the industry, because you are operating in an ecosystem. So the policies, the things that are going on, for example, are affecting the way you do work, but your awareness of that will let you know, because the worst thing you can do is to innovate and create something that cannot work in the larger picture, okay? The other thing that I think is so critical right now that any organization will pay a premium for is ownership, being able to claim ownership. And, you know, somebody said to me, oh, Jimmy, that it seems to me that in this period, that this work from home is a scam. We are working more hours, and that's the reality about it for those that are working. But again, the reason why you're working more hours is because the boat is in a storm, and therefore ownership is critical. You need to own that boat. You need to make sure that we are all coming out of this together. And so I say to people that the people that are going to matter post-COVID or in any organization from at all organizational levels are not the guys that do their job descriptions, but the guys that take ownership, create value, and are involved in being able to interpret it in this season. I have a few other things to share, but I think that I'm just going to allow other people to maybe add 1 or 2 things. You know, I don't know whether I still have, is this a 10, 15 minutes, or am I still going to come? I mean, should I just run through what I want to say?
Please go ahead.
Okay, beautiful. Not a problem at all. Okay, the other thing I want to say, and I think Nkiru spoke about it, is adaptability in this period. It's so interesting. You know, I've had, and I'm not going to mention organizations and all that, but I've had CEOs complain to me about some of the executives who are trying to ask that they keep to the contract of employment, particularly when remuneration is concerned, in a tough period like this. And these are people that are meant to be able to come to say, you know what, let's creatively find a way around it. But again, people are not willing to be adaptable at this point in time. We can't travel, but obviously we have partners that are in other countries that are also trying to run their business. And so because of time differences, we need to put in extra hours. The ability to adapt in this period is so critical. I'm going to go faster. Capability building. What was required pre-COVID in terms of capabilities is not what is required now. And therefore, in typical, HR...
I'd like to just mention something there. For the benefit of everybody who's listening, can you please make little notes as you go along, please? That's the best we can achieve on a network, on a platform like this. And Jimmy, I think perhaps if you mention quickly the bullet points and then maybe dig deep into one or two, because we have more questions for you and other panelists, yes.
Oh, beautiful. So let me just say the first one is visible value, create visible value. The second one is organizational and industry awareness must increase. The third one is ownership, that ownership mindset. The fourth one is adaptability, spoken about that just now. The fifth one is capability building.
Yes.
Capability building. The sixth one is collaboration. And the last one is what I call the underdog opportunity. The underdog opportunity. So I'm going to ask you, Winifred, which one should I speak about? Just wrap this up.
I'm sure I speak for everybody when I say the underdog capability.
I suspected that. That's fine, all right? The fact about it is that this is the huge opportunity. Okay, I can see JD Consulting. This is a huge opportunity for small players to make it big. I read a book many years ago called Elephants Can Dance. And what the book was basically trying to talk about is the fact that the larger the organization becomes, the more challenging it is to adapt in terms of change. And that is something that is going on right now because many organizations are riddled with bureaucracy to be able to approve. But see, when it comes to change, it doesn't respect whether you want to be bureaucratic or not. Yes, you must keep within certain risk management frameworks and all that, but you must respond to the realities of the market at this point in time. It therefore means that the smaller businesses are the ones that tend to have the capability to respond faster. And those are the ones that they call the underdog. So in Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, he spoke a lot about that. And that's where the concept of the underdog, we speak about that. And what I'm saying is that in every field, the people that are responding faster are the ones that are going to get the market share. And so what I mean by that is that this is not the time to wait for any business to wait for this time to pass. It is the opportunity to be able to make statements in your industry, in your field, and gain the market share by getting the mind share so that post the COVID, and this is what I said, the voice people hear in a storm is the voice they would follow after the storm. And so what I mean by that is this, that for any employee in an organization, this is the time to negotiate and put work in place for your accelerated promotion. And what I mean by that is that if you are the person, the man or the woman that clearly adds to the bottom line in this period, it is easy for you to be able to come tomorrow and go beyond the regular promotion cycle and actually maybe get a promotion or some sort of remuneration. The same thing for the organizations in their industry. This is the time you can actually innovatively take over some portions of your market. And that's why I've done it in my own field. I've seen a lot of traction in what I'm doing and all that, and even with organizations, because again, prior to this time, I've always, typically do trainings and it has to be face-to-face. But because I had a bit of leverage, and not just myself, a number of people with online platforms, we are now creating corporate solutions for organizations being able to learn at the same time. And that's what I mean in that regard. I hope that has helped.
Sure, thank you very much. Chinyere, I'm going to ask you to please quickly just, lend your perspective to the question that we had posed to Jimmy before I go on to the next question.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay, your question was, how has the pandemic changed the work culture?
Yes.
And so the first thing I'll say is that culture eats, Abby. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's what they say, right?
Yes.
So one thing that this pandemic has brought to the fore is that no matter how fantastic your strategy might have been before now, you're hit in the face with the reality that it doesn't mean anything in the face of what we are faced with the stay-at-home order. So the people who were able to quickly adapt, that is even the entire organization that was able to quickly adapt to the changing face or the changed and altered face of the way we do business, are the ones that are going to even excel after the pandemic is over. So I'd like to look at it from 3 perspectives, and that is your people, the processes you have in place, as well as your clients. So definitely during this pandemic, the first thing we did in my organization, and I'll use my organization as an example, was to kind of ensure that our people were protected, because I truly believe that your people are the biggest asset you have in every organization. So we had to ensure that the people were safe. They're safe in the workplace, safe working at home. And the very first thing was to ensure that they could continue the business outside of the office. Of course, buying of the laptops, putting the infrastructure in place. Already we had the digital platforms and working from the cloud and all that. And then obviously you have to secure the clients you already have, because in the professional services industry, clients are key. And so we had to put structures in place to ensure that the clients knew that we were still open for business, irrespective of the fact that there were the stay-at-home orders and you couldn't move about, but that we could work remotely. And letters went out to everybody, one-on-one calls went out to the top 50 clients of the firm, you understand, to give them some level of confidence that their information was safe. Obviously, with working from home, we had to deal with the issue of cybersecurity and data protection. Your records, how are you keeping them? How are your clients' records? As a law firm, we have a fiduciary relationship to ensure that all our information was intact. How were we ensuring that this couldn't be hacked, this couldn't be leaked? So that takes me to another changing phase. So if you were an organization that you hadn't invested in the use of technology in the provision of your services, obviously you're going to struggle around this time. And then that takes me to processes. Oh my goodness. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
go ahead. When you finish on process, I just wanted to lead you into the post-COVID. So you've talked about the change, people, technology, your customers, and processes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Trend of thought. So I was saying processes. Yes. So we had to look at the existing processes and try and adapt them or change them into how they could align with the realities of the place. Now, just to go back to people, one thing that the COVID period has let us know, just like Jimmy mentioned, was the measurement of performance management. Who were the ones actually doing the work and who were the ones that were just at home? You know, everybody says working from home, but some people were really on holiday or have been on holiday. So one thing that it revealed to us was that there were some loopholes. Not everybody was as busy as we thought. And so definitely post-COVID, when operations return to some level of normalcy, there's going to be a realigning of roles. Some people that were less busy, we're going to have to retrain them. Maybe one person became so obvious, so we had different team leads do an analysis of their units. Everybody was supposed to report in what you were doing in any one day, you understand, to ensure that you were actually working from home. And there were some, we weren't too strict in terms of delivering on certain things, but the stars would reveal themselves. Every organization has people who stand out. And just like Jimmy mentioned, it's those people, it's an opportunity for you to show that you can add value to your organization. So I've talked about people, I've talked about processes, and I've talked about the use of technology. So post-COVID, because I know that you would like other, were quite a few on the panel. Post-COVID, what are the things that an organization needs to do? And like we've all said,
there's change. You have to innovate. And why do you have to innovate? Because your customer or consumer or your buyer's mindset has changed completely. Things that were a priority to our clients are no longer a priority. Post-COVID, yeah. Things that are now important or more important to my customers than before. Obviously, social distancing is going to continue, right? And so how are you able to deliver on the service you provide whilst maintaining social distancing? How can you restructure the services you provide, taking into consideration that no client wants to come to your office for a meeting if they can help it, and perhaps no client will be asking you to come to their office for a meeting. Of course, it's technology, as we all have said, but not everybody is savvy in technology. So we're all going to have to retrain. In fact, I'm one of the ones, people think I'm very tech savvy, but I'm not. I'm doing training on really how to use Zoom properly, how to do the Teams properly. You understand? How to share the screen. I was a speaker on a conference yesterday, a virtual conference, and I was supposed to share my screen. I couldn't get the hang of it, I'm sorry to say. You know, so we're going to have to retrain. The last thing I want to talk about is solutions. You have to determine what solutions you can solve for your clients. You have to be available to your clients, and you have to be affordable. So again, I would say you have to provide a solution post-COVID. You have to provide that solution in an accessible manner, and you have to provide it at an available cost or affordable cost. These are the things that will matter post-COVID. These are the things that clients in my space, legal, are going to be looking at to ensure that you can keep your head above water. Let me park it there for now.
All right, thank you very much. So, Nkiru, I'm going to come to you in a minute, because it looks like the whole, well, that's my personal perspective, the whole conversation sort of has made the employee victim. It appears it's the employee who has to make a lot of change, new skills, and all of that. So, Kira, I'm going to come to you to please tell us what measures the employers should be putting in place to help employees prepare for their new reality. But just before I come to you, I want to say that we got a lot of questions when Chinyere and Jimmy were talking. So what I did was to scan quickly and pick the ones that were, you know, seemed to be the popular questions. A lot of questions around skills, what skills employees should get, from Ada Simmons, from Rebecca. Thank you for contributing. There's a question around the automation or the business tools that a legal department will use. And then there's also a question on the management style from Jason Consulting. I think it's very important because managers appear to struggle this period getting their team members to do work. So there's a question on the appropriate management style for to add this when you're rounding up at the end of the entire session. Factor this into whatever you had planned to say in your closing remarks, because these questions came for your session. Okay, so I'll go over to Nkiru now, and after Nkiru has spoken, I'm going to please ask Funke to speak to that same topic as well. So the question is, what measures should employers be putting in place to help employees prepare for their new reality?
Right. There are a couple of things that come to mind, and I suppose more than just come to mind, a couple of things that I've experienced just joining various business calls across the continent, just noting that my role is beyond regional at this time. And one of the first things I find is, strangely, organizations need to be more deliberate about providing mental health support.
Mm-hmm.
If they did mouth it before, or if they did treat it casually, I think now the reality and the pressure of the challenges people are feeling working remotely is something they now need to deal with. And the ways that they provide them are manifold. They may have definite systems and physical structures, but I think that just getting people to have the conversation around mental health is important. I think that this is the one time that an organization has to have a soul. And by soul, I mean that regardless of all the PowerPoint presentations that you've done around corporate culture, I feel like this is the taste of the pudding. This is now the time when we will say, oh, all that PowerPoint is a reality. And, you know, just listening to calls across the continent, I haven't had one call that has started without people checking on the welfare of the people. And, you know, typically we'll be like, oh, hi guys, morning. Hey, how's it going now? Let's get to the business review. Now we're doing nitty-gritty details like, how are you feeling? How is your family feeling? How is it? Because it's so important that the organization shows that it has a soul. Again, I talked about systems and processes. I believe that the organization at this time needs to amend its system so that it deals with the reality of working remotely. Now, this includes getting electronic signatures, if you will. This includes removing a lot of bureaucracy. I think it was Jimmy that talked about bureaucracies, so that the staff who are already challenged by a lack of human connection are able to get on, you know, with the basic work that you've asked them to do in these trying times. I think that the organization to see again what it will do to make life even way easier. I mean, I think from the organization's perspective, the last thing I need to fix in now is, I know that social connection is very important. And if you think about the millennials, I know millennials who have gone to work in a company because a few people work there, they like the engagement. There are people who thrive with human connections. I was chatting to a guy in Kenya, head of a line of business on Friday, and he said to me, oh, he needs to get off a call because he's having his TGIF. Of course, I was stunned. I said to him, well, how is that going to happen? He said to me, oh, we all get on house party and we reenact, everyone brings their drinks and we reenact what we used to have. So I feel like more than ever, the organization needs to have a soul. The organization needs to adjust systems and processes. The organization needs to find ways to stimulate social connection, which is a very important pillar. And most lastly, the organization needs to provide mental support for employees at this time. I'll pause and then I'll come back with a few more. Thanks, Winnie. Over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Nkiru. So Funke, I'm going to please, and just to mention, Funke, for you, I'm going to please ask you to lend your voice to the question that Nkiru had responded to. And then I'm also going to ask you back to back the two questions that my audience is saying that I should ask you, because I understand that there's another engagement as well. So please allow me to take Funke at a stretch. So Funke, please, can you add to what Nkiru has said? Okay, regarding how, you know, what measures employers should put in place to help employees prepare for the new reality?
From where I can take off very comfortably from where she started. So Nkiru has taken us into the space that I call the foundation of what the employers should do now. We need to be focusing on to empower the employees. And the matters of the heart is really the foundation. The matters of the head and the hands would come only after the heart has been laid. So the specifics that Nkiru is, the sequencing is right. The specifics she's hit on, which is invest, compose really. I'd like to use psychological balance for employees. You know, care, the subject of empathy is the foundation. I'd like to emphasize that. You know, there's no doing all that Nkiru has talked about before we begin. And it's not enough to just say, oh, we've invested in an employee assistance program. Our people know who to call. Our people know where to go. No, it's us putting our heads, our hearts, where our heads would naturally be when we're thinking rationally around how do I use the skill sets. And I'll give you a simple example before I come to the hard part of things, just to emphasize the soft part. So we ran a workshop in this period. We ran a session, a coaching session for our women in the network we call the Blue Women Network. And, you know, just like this, we ask questions. What do you think we should be talking about? Parenting, very, very obvious. children are now schooling right beside me. My son is schooling on Microsoft Teams. I'm also at work on Microsoft Teams. All of the challenges we thought we should discuss. And guess what? The first person to drop in her commentary said, listen, I've got a 5-year-old, I've got a 3-year-old, and I've actually got a 6-month-old. And I am in one of the roles that requires me to be up and about. I can't even pay attention to these young ones. Immediately, just by engaging, you knew that that person needs a lot more support personally, and that person needs a lot more support on the kind of work she's doing currently. So organizations need to engage at the heart to see this is not working now for this person. What type of work can we potentially, sort of shift the skill set into and enable the person work differently in this remote period? So speaking to the hard, I've said the soft part is the foundation. The hard part of what employers should be doing differently now. Firstly, employers should be investing in technology. Oh, but we already have enough. There's nothing like having enough, because we're in a world now where rapidly, in the speed of light, the organizations that will excel in this new post-COVID, just like Jimmy said, the organizations that will excel and be ahead of competition, their competition are organizations that will capture the customer of the future and will be able to deliver the needs of the customer of the future, not necessarily their own products and services, but the needs of the customer of the future and deliver the experience of the customer of the future. Accordingly, there's a lot more to be done. Organizations must invest in technology. Related to that, they must review their processes to ensure that it is empowered and enabled by technology. If indeed, for governance reasons, you must get a signature, a physical signature on a document for the process to run, then you invest in EchoSign, invest in signature signing, apps. Ensure that your employees are equipped with the appropriate digital enablements required for them to deliver in today's marketplace. In other words, businesses need to begin to do a quick analysis of their current investment, technology, infrastructure, and enablement against what the customers are demanding of them now. We've been in a lockdown for 4 weeks, and no one could physically go and do much. You compulsorily had to deal digitally. Organizations need to begin to ask, how excellently can our processes run leveragely? Can our employees leverage on technology? Organizations need to build digital capabilities, deliberately empower, and if you like, resource employees to build and equip themselves on digital literacy. Organizations need to invest in this. You need to begin to think about digital groceries. We need to begin to think about how do we empower employees to take, go beyond being interested in building digital skills to being empowered financially to build these digital skills. So organizations need to invest in building digital skills. Organizations need to build digital leadership skills. What does that mean? Very simple. Leading in a brick and mortar, face-to-face, I can see everybody, is somewhat different from digital leadership. So organizations need to invest in how do you ensure that your leaders have the digital mindset, leading a large team working remotely. Someone said today in a session I facilitated, how do you support a line manager that has what I call proximity bias? In other words, you're not close enough to me, I can't even see you. How do I know you're doing the work? So organizations need to invest in upskilling our leaders to understand leadership in a digital era. Organizations need to empower the new ways of working. If people need to be tooled up, get a laptop to replace the desktop you've been using, organizations need to make that happen. If people need to be supported to have data, organizations need to make that happen. Empower this new ways of working. I'm going to stop there so that I can move to all the other questions that you have. What it's about, what organizations need to do is about the hard and the soft.
Yes. Thank you very much. And it just speaks to what Nkiru mentioned earlier when she talked about organizations should have a soul. And I see that that's one of the comments. Thank you, Vivian Eze, for your comment. We already have a couple of questions, but Funke, please, we would like to know, there's a question that I think this is focused on or sort of touches on this new life of social distancing that is our new reality. And so people are asking for employees, the workplace also provides a social life for them. That's where we spend 9, 10, 8 hours and all that. So how will the leader in the workplace guide employees to make these changes?
You know, it's a very tricky question because the construct, when I went researching social distancing, I realized that it's not anything novel, so new, you know, it's always been in pockets, you know, but it's to say, when do you trigger social distancing? So because social distancing in this regard is medically triggered, it's triggered for, you know, if you like in a life and death construct, it means it is compelling. It means organizations must review their workplace processes to ensure that it is 100% aligned to social distancing. And I'll make it very simple. So in your organization, I'm working and I have to use an elevator. If your elevator is the size of a small cabin, then you essentially must enforce the fact that the rules of social distancing occur. So even if you have to go in a long queue, it goes with one person at a time. So there's the compelling part of social distancing that organizations must make happen. As we speak, I know of several organizations, including mine, taking a new look at the workplace to say, indeed, how do we redesign the workplace to ensure that we can ensure the 2 meters social distancing required in this pandemic, to ensure that we are, at the very minimum, we're ensuring that employees are within the preventive measures space where they should be. Beyond the compelling social distancing, which practically, all I'm saying is, there's nothing the employer or the line manager can do about that. Social distancing as a preventive measure must be maintained. And in that regard, organizations must rethink the workspace, must rethink the outline of the design, must ensure that in all processes, it can indeed be attained. Now, on the flip side of it is to say, how can we ensure that that social connection continues to happen? You know, in recent time, I have found excellent ways of ensuring that digital social life occurs. And I think that leaders within the organizations must begin to pay attention to, how do I ensure that you know, for starters, employee engagement activities are remodeled within the construct of social distancing. It doesn't kill employee engagement. Employee experience is now being shaped differently. And employee experience and employee engagement are CME's twins. So how would the leader now begin to motivate employees and trigger employee engagement activities that are within the rules of social distancing? And I found that digitally, a lot can be enabled. So in one of my work life, in one of my working groups, we have frequently Nkiru's references, thank God it's Friday, we've got frequently social events. I was surprised to receive one of those invites that said, oh, this next social event has a dress code and everybody must come all dressed up, all geared up in their social attires, in their ethnic group attire, and really getting everyone into the spirit and the mode of connecting socially. So in essence, social distancing does not take away social connections. Social connections and indeed social circles can continuously be built within the organization, even in the construct of the distance. So it's to think creatively outside of the box to say, how can we organize socially? How can we organize digitally this social connection and ensure that it continues to happen? And it's to really, really go take a long list and say, what do we currently have? How can we, what indeed could you consider a match in the digital environment? And yesterday night, a friend of mine was saying to me, oh, she had a Zoom party. She had a birthday and she had a Zoom party. She had a big bang DJ. She had, you know, and I was beginning to look at her to say, are you okay? She said, yes. Funke, I missed you. I sent you an invitation. You didn't pick it up. I didn't even pick it up until late at night. By the time I was talking to her, she was telling me of a big bang party, which everyone attended. Social connections must be deliberately created, knowing that the distance is already upon us and there's nothing we can do about it, which is why all organizations are keeping remote working now a new way of life. So nobody's going back to work 100%. What will happen to those who are off work? Are they completely disconnected from their colleagues? It can't be so. It's to deliberately say, what are the how can we overlay within the construct, within the limitations of social distancing, social connections enabled by the digital platform, enabled by other tools and other infrastructure to ensure that our employees continuously connect. It may mean that leaders will go out of their way to make themselves available to connect with the employees, just so the employees know that there is still a community within. Is social distancing does not limit social connections, but we must be deliberate. We're creating the social activities that will enable our employees connect. We should do it at the organizational level. We should do it at the team levels. So if you have networks at the organizational level that you were, using physical events to drive, you should begin to think of how do you translate those events into onto digital channels and ensure technology to help you drive the same. And the same thing at team leader level, team leaders should do the same. Then individual employees themselves should do the same and align to how can I ensure that I'm continuously connecting socially, even in this world of social distance.
Thank you very much, Funke. I see a lot of comments from our audience. Dorothy Tunde Ajala has attended a Zoom party. There's a lot of interest around the employee experience, and thank you for what you said. There's a question I'd like you to touch on. Somebody is asking, how can you maintain social distance in schools? Any tips, just if you have any 1-2 practical tips before I go on to my last question for you. How can we, and Jimmy, I'd like you to think about this as well, if anybody has a quick suggestion. Yes, Funke, over to you, please.
So this school subject matter, for full disclosure, I have a 7-year-old. I have a 7-year-old turning 8 shortly, and I had a big headache around the subject of his going back to school. A bigger headache for him than I had for myself, i.e. myself going back to the workplace, because I knew we could always fix things. But I was worried about how the school enterprise would be able to deal social distancing for children. It took a lot for us to communicate what was going on to my son and get him, but the moment he got it, that was it. He would be the one to read it out like a poem to say to you, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Having said that is to say, children, a school is about children, is where children come together, and children will always be children. With every child is the definite tendency to want to, if you like, engage with other children in close proximity, even engage with adults in close proximity. So what I think that schools can do, and I've said that to say that I consider schools a niche of, really impacted of people in this whole pandemic, group of organizations in this whole pandemic because of the nature of their work. And I said to myself earlier on, if my son's school, which is Corona School, doesn't come up with a blueprint that satisfies me as a mother, that all my concerns for social distancing and all of that has been taken care of, I wouldn't let him go back to school. And thankfully, Corona, in their wisdom, came up and said, you know what, we'll do the online schooling because we don't even see that we can deal with this. I think that the schools are in the category you could call the higher risk environments, okay, where you need to get social distancing to become the norm, to shift from what we're doing today. Because children naturally would come together in close proximity. A child's first reaction is to hug an adult. And so I had to tutor my son to say, you don't hug nobody anymore. So the truth is, the school has to be in the position to, one, almost remodel, if you like, their physical infrastructure. Invest in technology enabling, protocols and infrastructure. Invest to ensure that even their teachers can reach. My son's class, for example, they're 25. And just thinking about the way they sit, I said to myself, there's no social distance there. So it will mean that for them to uphold the physical sitting in the class, they've got to split the class into 2 at the minimum. And then when the children have to go on break, how do you maintain the social distancing? It will mean
they'll probably have a digital break.
Absolutely must. Yes, digital break, indeed. If we absolutely must keep the children in class, because I think the first default is, should we keep the children out of class to start with? But if we absolutely must keep children within the confines of the classroom, a lot of creativity has to go into how do you connect the children socially? How do you connect the children socially on a digital platform and ensure that you are very convinced that they're used to it, it's become their norm before you then bring them all together. So they've got to be independent to start with. So my son is building the social distancing skills now. He understands and sees his colleagues online, and he understands he can play and exchange and do all of that, and he feels good. So if he gradually moves back to school, where rather than a class of 25, there are just 6 people in class, he probably will understand the social break time and social this and social, digital this and digital that, because the foundation has been laid. I think that schools are, the first category that may not immediately be able to jump back to the normalcy of going back to all they were doing before. the school is, particularly because the children are another group of, they're a special group that you don't want a child picking up the virus. You don't want a child, you know, he can't even explain himself at certain ages. So I think that much more than before, school owners should invest in technology. Upskill their tutors and their aunties and the mummies and the classroom teachers, upskill them very quickly on the use of these tools and ensure that they can connect with their children on a daily basis, at least for starters. Move all the school exercises, all the school interactions onto the digital platform and begin to engage with the students. You take it from there gradually as we return, you know, as you make it a gradual return to work. Every organization has a recovery strategy, which is phased out. And I think a school should have a phased strategy, maybe even longer than most organizations, potentially because we do need to be sure that the children are very well ring-fenced from what's out there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Funke. I'm going to go to Jimmy and Chinyere because I have some legal issues, but I just want to mention there's actually somebody who's joined us from Corona Trust Council, and they've left their comments regarding the efforts the school is making. So thank you, the representative from Corona Trust. Thank you for all the questions coming in. There's also a contribution from Giant Consulting, which I think is critical, that says that schools need to look at how the social distancing and all the rules affect children emotionally so that they don't forget interaction and the importance of interaction. So thank you, Funke. I'm gonna go to Jimmy and Chinyere now. You know, and the question is that employers have a legal duty of care for their employees' safety and health. So the question is, has this responsibility, or how will this responsibility be discharged with the work from home policy? So the employer's legal duty of care for employees' safety and health. How does this work when we're operating a work from home policy? You know, I'd like Chinyere to start that conversation, but Jimmy, just to mention that while she's looking at that, I'll also like you to bring in the part about, you know, employers and business owners and CEOs are concerned about their workforce. So they're asking, will they terminate employment? Will they right size or downsize? Will they cut salaries, furlough, whatever measures they want to put in place? I'd like you to talk on that as well, because then Mrs. Okorocha can present the legal perspective of what we need to do while we're taking those measures. So I think I cede the floor, the virtual floor, to Mrs. Okorocha. Please tell us, you know, how employers can manage their responsibility to their employees in view of the work from home policy.
Okay, obviously, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Obviously, an employer of labor owes every employee a duty of care in terms of making the work environment conducive and safe. And therefore, that is embedded into the contracts of employment that each employee has. So the question now becomes, in the face of COVID, how is that duty of care being discharged? Now, I mean, I spoke before about the things we did in my organization and the fact that people are the bedrock of every successful organization. And so there have to be specific steps that you have taken to ensure the safety of your organization. Giving my firm as an example, we're an organization that does a lot of travel in discharge of our duties, our functions. If it's not an international travel, it's interstate travel, you understand, or it's going to the courts, or it's going to clients' offices for meetings, and so on and so forth. But we had to issue a travel directive within our organization to say until further notice, all travel is hereby cancelled. So whether it's going to clients, whether it's going abroad for conferences or meetings, all that was cancelled. And we actually issued a formal directive saying that that was the case. Now we've talked, I mean, every organization provided tools in terms of the thermometer when you're entering the office to ensure that everybody coming in didn't have a fever. the sanitizers and face masks. One thing we also did was to ensure that the cleaning within the organization, the cleaners, we employed more cleaners to be cleaning every 30 minutes. So all the door handles and the surfaces, all that was done. Now we also went and had a look at our HMO contracts with our organizations, the health management organization, which the firm subscribes to. Not everybody was eligible, but just about 2 weeks before the closure, the HR manager was asked to go and review all those policies and try and add on people who were not in that covered under the policy. We also reviewed the hospitals that were being under the HMO system to ensure that they covered all parts of the country. All parts of the country, or in Lagos in particular, all parts of, you know, the other areas that are not like in the usual work districts. Now what that did, and then we also extended it to include for some levels, members of the family. That created a sense of, you know, oneness and a sense of well-being among the employees, that we were thinking that way, because the COVID-19 is indeed a health and safety issue. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people have passed in this pandemic. So it is trying time. So that gave them the confidence that the organization was thinking about them. We also ensured that we had been talking a lot for a long time about a mentorship scheme. I mean, the fringes and outline of it were ready. But during this period, we now brought it to fore, such that some of the partners each partner had a number of, mentees within the organization in terms of well-being. So I really, really took to the point that the two previous speakers mentioned, that mental health was very important. Yes, it is very, very important at this time. I mean, we're all here smiling, but some people are having a really hard time working from home, the fear of it all, fear of family members, and then making that transition from working during the day and being at home. Not everybody has it easy or is able to adapt to be able to still be productive during the work day. So we have our mentors within the organization checking on people during once a week anyway. And then of course, line managers had to be, well, it wasn't retraining as such, but it was putting policies in place that ensured that you check in on your team members. Yeah. Now, I liked the idea. So one thing we are trying to do, we haven't done it yet, a hangout, a Zoom hangout. And I saw pictures of Con and Pierre on the internet where they were hanging out, and all the members in the organization had to post pictures of what they were doing at home. What we did in my organization is that we have what we call a town hall every 2 weeks, and that town hall, the managing partner will come out and address everybody in the organization, and it's like a banter, and you must be on video. You can't do the thing where you don't show your face. So, you know, I think that creates a feeling of well-being, which is so important at this time, because there's so much negativity in the news. You turn on CNN and all you're hearing is tales of woe. In fact, personally, at some time I stopped looking at the news. So these are just some of the things, of course, that I think lend your voice or our voice to the fact that we do hold a duty of care to our employees during this time, and it goes well beyond their ability to do the work. It transcends that, and you have to let your staff, you have to let your colleagues know that the organization isn't just interested in you because you are able to provide the services with which the clients are serviced, but your well-being is also important to them. I don't know if you want me to delve into at the same time, or maybe I'll take it later, because I actually looked at the questions and saw the one to do with software for law firms, or I can talk about that later. But these are just some of my thoughts regarding that duty of care that we owe our staff as an employer of labor.
Yes, I'm going to come back to you in a minute to speak about the software for law firms, because I think that's very important. But I want Jimmy to, add to what you've said. But I just quickly want to mention something we got on the platform. So there's a concern from Galaxy, and I think Nkiru Olumide-Ojo, I'm going to pose this challenge to you later on in the session. Our audience, they're asking how we can help, because we've talked a lot about skills that are critical in the new world post-COVID. And obviously there's a lot of emphasis on digital skills, but then there's a large group of people who absolutely have no technological skills whatsoever, and yet they need to live in the new world. So what do they do? The short answer is that they have to go and get that skills, yes. Where I'd like Nkiru to come in is, can organizations do some CSR, anything, to help people who need these skills but are otherwise not able to get them? Just something around that. Because organizations represented here all have CSR programs. So perhaps it can be one of the takeouts from this session, what people can do to support the informal sector or people who need to build digital skills but are not able to. So Chinyere, I will come back to you to take that part of the legal technology for law firms. But I'd like you
one more. Sorry, yes. Winifred. One last point that I missed was communication is key. I think it's so important as an employer, every step of the way you carry your workforce along in terms of the decisions you're taking that affect them and the policies you're putting in place in times of crisis. It's very important. I think that leadership crisis is the time when you can separate the wheat from the tar. It's a time for a leader to show that they actually are leaders, and it's important that you carry your workforce along and let them know, communicate regularly as to what policies can affect them, what decisions the organization is taking in order to ensure that their head is above water, and what the future is going to look like. Just wanted to add that part.
Great, thank you, and that was really good. Thank you. So Jimmy, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, and again, Chair, thanks for that point, because I was just going to add something about, safety and health, for the organization, that communication, even as simple as, I've been doing a lot of things online for the last 1 month, and I've had to begin to think about the chair I'm sitting on. I mean, simple things, because again, the ergonomical chairs that are actually suitable, and I know people, for example, that the organization is now having to pay medical bills because of their back. As simple as that. So communication is key, but also suggestions in terms of how to work, take a break. I have a consulting background also, and I remember then they would tell us a lot about taking a break from looking at your screen. Simple. Now we are having more screen time than, FaceTime and all that. These are little tips here and there. You asked me to speak about.
Pop in there quickly, because you mentioned something very important about the ergonomical chairs, right? Yeah. Who should buy that? You don't have to answer, because Mrs. Okorocha spoke to how the employers can support employees working from home in terms of safety and health. Now, are you going to ask your employees to invest in that? Or is the employer, so office is now moving to the home. So employers, instead of paying for physical office space, is setting up the home office for the employees. It's something to think about, really.
Well, that is. I agree with you. And again, once we are able to move about, some roles will remain at home. Because businesses realize that, look, this person actually do this work from home now, and then they might decide and say, I want to make that investment. I'm not sure companies are just going to go ahead and buy chairs for every single person. Those chairs are actually costly. So I think it depends on, the organization, the ability to handle those costs. And of course, also the essential roles in the organization, not just everybody. So yes. Now, the other thing I want to talk about was, spoke about, the option, should they terminate staff? How do you handle your, staffing at this point in time? I'm not going to be able to say this is what you should do, because context differs. But one of the things I've learned, is to basically have certain guiding principles that will determine the solution you're going to prefer, okay? So for example, from a HR point of view, you want to make sure that one key guiding principle is that you only keep essential costs So what I mean by essential are both short and mid-term costs. So basically any excess costs that will not contribute to the immediate direction of the organization, so, and that has even to do with staffing. So for example, you have different staffing categories in your organization. And so if I'm saying I want to do a termination, for example, because of this guiding principle, I know where I need to look and where I should not look. Another one, again, is to begin to look at our cash flow as an organization, because again, if you say, that we want to support people, because some businesses have said, you know what, one of the ways that we want to support people in this season is that rather than just keep food outside, we would keep our salary structure the same for the next 3 months. And that for them is their CSR, okay, as it were. So again, it depends on cash flow. Some businesses don't have the cash flow to be able to run that kind of model. So you have to be able to look at your cash flow to see what it is you can do. The other thing, again, is to say, in all we do, we make sure we keep our best. So while, because again, this is the easiest period that, companies will lose very good hands, and to get them back will be very, very tough. So a guiding principle is that in all that we do, we make sure we don't lose our best. Another one is that we must stay within the labor laws and organizational policies. Because again, don't just react economically to the situation, but be able to ensure that you have regulatory compliance also. So these are just a few thoughts I thought that I should share in that regard. You also said, what are the kind of skills required post-COVID? And typically, in terms of competency frameworks and all that, you typically have basic areas. So for example, you have organizational skills. You might not have skills that are particular to the role, which might call technical skills, for example. And then I have what we call productivity skills. So what I mean by that is this, that technology, the use of technology is now a productivity skill. It's no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. So again, people can determine to train themselves in that regard. Again, when it comes to organizational skills, the business might say, we need this capability going forward. And so while people are still at home in the next few days, let everybody go through this program online. So we're able to, and again, it's not just, I think that, we spoke about culture earlier. Let me just add something to that, is that culture is an enabler for productivity if it is positive, okay? And now might be a time to realize that we've not built an intentional culture that can support our aspirations. And so one of the skills might be certain values or elements of culture that we might try to drive across the whole organization. That's something else we need to begin to look at. And when it comes to technical skills, I can't say, man, somebody was asking, what should lawyers do? What should nurses do? I'm not a lawyer, not a nurse. I can't speak to that, but clearly look into your field and find out what capabilities are required at this point in time. I think the last point is somebody actually asked a question and says, what do people that are in the events planning industry do? Because their role is more face-to-face. And this one I love to speak about because we are, Winfred, we are in an event right now. Some people sat down and put all of this together, the flow, the moderator and all that. And so you can do this for organizations. Yesterday, FCMB, is it today or yesterday? They did their AGM utilizing Zoom, okay? And so some people put that together. So why don't you reach your customers to now create online events, create reports at the end of the day, go beyond the norm. So there's so much. So don't, just move your mind away from what used to exist to what the new opportunity is and create new value in that regard. That's what I'll say.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you. So I gave Nkiru a teaser earlier on. I'd like her to please speak on that. And in fact, Funke Amobi to join in, because CSR is big on Blue Women Network and some of the activities that I know the organizations you work for do. So I'd please like Nkiru and Funke to take on that. Kiru, over to you.
Thanks, Winifred, for that assignment, that homework. But really, you are right. It's very important that people have what I'll call the basic digital skills. And it's great if corporates have it in their agenda and they can offer it as a CSR. But I'll put that aside because it may not be the organization's focus at the time. I think two things. One is I really believe in self-investment. And the second thing is there's an outbreak and overload and overflow of information. I'm actually information fatigued. And guess what? There are so many free digital courses that people can find. And I'm just going to leave us with the three skills that I think, the three most basic digital skills I think that we need. Believe it or not, you do need social media skills. and that is understanding what the top 3 platforms are and how you can communicate across those platforms. You do need search skills, and really that's how to search information on the web. I think just based on my skill versus another's, if I decided to search for information, I probably knowing how to use search engines, be able to find the information faster, and that's what you want. And if you'd like to advance, you can progress into a search engine optimization program. You also need social selling, because the world is a billboard, and even worse now with the situation that we found ourselves in. The one area that has seen an uptake in terms of revenue is the e-commerce area. And therefore, I believe that everyone needs social skills and social selling skills. Now, I think that the very last skill that I'm going to ask that we please try and acquire, because this also is a basic selling skill, is email marketing skills. And just understanding the way that I talk to you basically on email versus the way that I sell a product to you are completely different. Now, Google has a free digital training that is carried out in through many of their agents, if I can use the word. And it's free. All you need to do is find, connect, and you actually get a certification. So I think that works. Now, lastly, there are also a couple of organizations that have offered reverse mentorship. So if you're a senior and you're not really digital savvy, they will pair you up with a younger person who is digitally savvy so that he can reverse mentor you. Obviously, you know that reverse mentorship comes with its own skills that you require, which is humility and amongst other things. But I think that digital skills are so important. There actually are more than a couple of free places where you can get these digital skills. If you don't acquire anything, please acquire social selling, search, let's not say search engine optimization, just basic search skills. Obviously now, how to use all the video apps that are available. And I think just find. Lastly, before I hand over to the next speaker, I was talking to the CEO of Happy Coffee in our group at the Lighthouse Network. She came to speak to us, and she said to me, after God and her family, the next biggest, if I can use the word, idol in her life is the internet. So that says a lot and says why it's imperative that we get the skills that have made a huge difference, you know, in her life and in her business. Thank you. I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Thank you. Funke, any contribution to that?
Thank you very much. Again, taking the baton from Nkiru, I'll be splitting it again into the hard and the soft. So you see, when we get into this era, this space of skill acquisition for the future of work, or what it is that it is today, our realities today, I would say that the stakeholder ownership is one group of stakeholder ownership is as important as the other. So the employer is certainly a stakeholder group that takes ownership for skills development at a time like this, or on a subject like this. The employee is another one. The society is another one, to your point alluding to corporate social responsibility. Now, the truth is, recall I said I've been passionately selling the subject of, you know, get ready for the future of work for the last couple of years. There's so much out there that's available free of charge. That at the individual employee or individual professional level, if you take enough interest in the subject of developing your digital literacy skills, you will not be financing your interests or your education. Digital education is not going to be the biggest of all issues. The most challenging aspect of getting this done, in my view, is the interest of the individual concerned. So, World Economic Forum, once upon a time, about 2016, came up with this huge report on what they call the skills of the future, what skills are declining, what skills are growing, and what every employee should be focused on or every employer should be investing in. Guess what? They said digital literacy skills would be in the near future, which was like 2020 at the time, would be in the near future 680% in higher demand. They said creativity will be 280% in higher demand. They said presentation type skills will be 110% in higher demand. What have we done with this? That literature has been out there for so long. And all it was saying was, everyone get ready for the future of work, get ready. How ready are you? And you could just yourself, when we say literacy skills, we're really talking about the high-end hardcore literacy skills, i.e. robotics, artificial intelligence, or midway data and advanced robotics. That is part of digital literacy. But the beginning is the orientation, digital awareness. So I think it's a stakeholder responsibility. I think, yes, the organization responsibility to put in place a structured approach to upskill their people on digital proficiency, the digital proficiency of their people on digital education. Digital literacy must be part of your curriculum, you know, even straight up from when you bring in your new hires. You should be talking to them about digital literacy. What are the digital platforms within your organization? How can they get themselves around it? You should attach to them, like Nkiru said, you should attach to them reverse mentoring. Who are those mentors that are digital savvy? It doesn't matter what their job are, but go onto the social media, you know that they are the ones controlling the space. So they are somewhat savvy. Pull them into a group and ensure that they can support others. Build the circles of influence around digital education within the organization. Make it a norm. In my organization, we built what we call the Digital Academy. And the first base of the Digital Academy was digital awareness, a compulsory course that everybody had to go through. Guess where it was, or guess where it is? Our Digital Academy is on LinkedIn. It was deliberately curated by the team on LinkedIn. So it's not as far-fetched as we think it is. Although at the far end, we have what we call DigiBursary, which was recently introduced. Digital bursary to enable anybody who wants to go and do an MSc in advanced robotics. Come and have a conversation with us. We're happy to give you a bursary. Blah, 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 blah. To encourage you to pursue that interest that you have. Or we send people on data science for months, 6 months, 9 months. They go on data science programs, and then we get them certified. So there's a structured way to ensure that the employer, and regardless, this is sector agnostic, regardless of the sector, because this is the future, the employer should have a structured approach to ensure that people are getting digitally upskilled. Their digital literacy is deliberately moved from one level of maturity to the other within the organization. There must be a structure in place. Secondly, second stakeholder group, or first stakeholder group really, is the employee. You must have the interest. You know, once upon a time, and this once upon a time was, again, Nkiru and I are very connected. Once upon a time, Nkiru was the head of marketing and comms, you know, before she went off to South Africa. She came up with this rule that as part of leadership, building leadership, digital, you know, leadership capabilities, everyone had to get on social media handles, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it was compelling. It was, we must build a culture, a digital culture, empowerment. You know, people must build the interest themselves. And at EXCO level, it was almost decreed. You must get on the handles and let us see. You know, we can't say that, you know, into the digital platform as an organization. We can't have a digital strategy, and we have leadership that are not digital, leaders that are not digitally oriented. So the first layer is to ensure that employees themselves have a strong enough interest to build their own personal development plan on the leadership, on the digital agenda. Secondly, employees should have a structure in place. Thirdly, society should also, to your point, from corporate social responsibility, set up related enterprises. As an organization, Stanbic IBTC, we have a lab in Yaba. I'm sure many people on the line don't know that. The social responsibility. The lab is there to drive originality on digital platforms, to ensure that, you know, the in there, and you can think out of the box. You can get, they're all there. The digital experts are all there in the lab, and that's why it's situated in the heart of Yaba, so that you are not, you know, somewhere in VGC or somewhere in, you know, Banana Island, where people would rather have their own clubs in-house. Rather sit in the heart of those who are dreaming and thinking techie, and go and brainstorm and go and idealize, and, you know, and ensure that you're taking ownership. And part of the soft skills of the future is, beyond creativity, is originality. How much can you take ownership of to say, I built this product, I built this service, I built this solution, I built this opportunity. How much can you take ownership of? I think that organizations already have pockets of this corporate social responsibility all around, and that's the truth. Many organizations that I know have something or the other in this space of driving innovation, and they are running a product, they're running a CSR product or a CSR event that they ensure that maybe a target group come together to ensure that they pull them together on an annual basis and enable them innovate. So it's all of these things that have been put out there to ensure that people can take ownership. It is that ownership that I think we need to step out of our comfort zone and take the opportunity. The sheer number of free resources you have to build digital literacy cannot, the Coursera's, the Udacity, they cannot really be fully utilized by all of us. Even if we decided, you know, the working class decided we want to all go on these resources, you will still have a lot to take advantage of.
Thank you very much, Funke. You and Kiru have actually done a lot of justice to that. I'm going to come to Chinyere because I want her to take that question on the legal software that was raised by someone. But just in terms of where we are, I'd like to mention a few things. I think that Funke and Kiru made a lot of emphasis on the importance of digital skills. You've talked about it from the perspective of the organization investing in it and self-investments as well for the employee as well. In fact, Mrs. Amobi mentioned, and I'm saying this for the benefit of our audience, she did mention that it has to be a part of your development plan in your organization. You just have to embed it, even right from your induction program. I think that is a free tip for every HR practitioner here. I want to thank our audience who have stayed with us. You're still here. We're not wrapping up. I'm just acknowledging you that you have remained engaged, and thank you for all the questions coming in. I see that one of the big banks in Nigeria had their AGM using Zoom, and that went well. So there's a lot of emphasis on technology. So I'm going to go to Chinyere now, but just to say, after Chinyere responds to that specific question, I'll throw two more questions to my panelists, and I would want each person to speak to that because there's always a fresh perspective from everybody. And then while they're doing that, I'll look through the Q&A. So this is the time to post your most critical questions so that when they're done, then we can run through the Q&A because I understand we have to wrap up somewhere between 6 and 6:30. So we want to make sure that all our audience get full benefit and that we touch on as many questions from our participants as we can. Okay, so Mrs. Chinyere, can you please respond to that specific question on the legal software? After you're done, I'm going to go back to Nkiru and Jimmy this time with more questions, and then you and Mrs. Amobi can go into that. Yes.
Okay, I believe the question, I hope I've unmuted, yes. The question was around what digital software a law firm can use. But just before I answer the question specifically, I just wanted to mention that a lot of the SME companies, what the COVID situation has thrown open or thrown light on is the fact that the digital space, like everybody, Kiru and Funke were saying, is very important to acquire those digital skills or digital literacy. But I wanted to delve into the issue of branding. You know, when you think about the changes that have come, you kind of think about, oh, this is going to be such an expensive venture. And like they mentioned, there are many free courses and all that. But what brand, how do you get what we really need to be thinking about is how you get the products and services that you're selling into the place where your clients or your clientele can see them. And what the digital space helps you do, that it helps you scale like you couldn't before. So if I was to take one good thing from the COVID-19 pandemic, it will be the fact that people have realized that they can scale their business using those digital platforms. You think about a company that wants to have a franchise in different countries, different towns or different countries, you know, and the fact that they can use the internet to, at the click of a button there, from here in Nigeria, they can be in Australia, for example. And I just want to give an example of the Nigerian Bar Association Women's Forum, where I'm the vice chairperson, and that's just an association of all the female lawyers in Nigeria. And we run a mentorship program where we mentor young female lawyers. And we had an event in Port Harcourt the event was supposed to, the event was supposed to go from state to state so that it gets to all states of the country, because NBA is a statewide or nationwide organization. So it was meant to go from Port Harcourt, then you go to the north, then you go to the east, and so on and so forth, and somewhere in the west. So we had the first one in Port Harcourt, and there were 40 or 50 mentees attended, and it went well. It was nice, lovely speakers and all that. Knowledge was impacted. And by the time the second one was scheduled, the NBA, the social distancing and travel restrictions were in place. We were in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we couldn't go to the northern part of the country where we were meant to. But what did we do? We quickly switched gear and decided to have it virtually. And having it virtually meant that we had to use one of those platforms, like we all know, and we did it. And guess what? We had over 500 young lawyers attend, 500. So imagine if that event was done in Makurdi, where we expected it to be done. And I'm distracted. If we had remained in the physical space, so to speak, we would have gotten about 50, perhaps maybe even 100 attendees. But by going digital, we were able to scale it up, and it impacted more people. So that's really the mindset I want everybody to have. And the small business out there that we're saying all these digital, this, go and learn that and all that. Think of the positives in it. You can use it as a way to scale your business. Some of those could listen to someone the other day, and he said all he needs in order to do his business is an internet connection and his phone. That's all he needs. And he can move mountains, make lots of money. Okay, so in terms of the legal space and what software we're using, I would say that for your accounting, you need a software for your accounting. Great Plains is a good one to look at. It helps you with all your invoicing. It helps you generate reports as to who is owing you receivables and so on and so forth. And you can actually produce those accounts on a monthly basis or as you choose. We also have a case management software system. It's called Patricia, and it's being run by a company in Switzerland, I believe, called Patrick's. So all our files are on Patricia, and we're able to access them remotely. That also helped us, 100% in being able to move the business from being in our physical office to working remotely. Obviously, Office 365 is here, and the legal space are using Office 365. That is where you have your teams that most offices are using to communicate. Then obviously for our legal precedents and co, we use Law Pavilion, and we also use another one called Lex Counsel. So all the case law that you would need and templates for commercial transactions are all electronic, and you can also access them remotely. And therefore our HR related information, we use something called HR Focus. And HR Focus has the details of all employees. Your leave applications can be done there, casual leave and all whatnot. So these are just a few of them. But I think that it is critical, like everybody has said here today, that the use of technology is the future. Those in the tech space say that the rest of the world, I mean, they've been shouting about it or crying about it before now, and the rest of the world is just catching up. But that's the future. The future of work is the use of technology so that you can actually run your office from anywhere in the world. And the physical office space. In fact, think about it. I listened to a webinar the other day, and a particular organization said they had two buildings that they were using for their offices, and that after COVID, they're going to close down one office completely. That is a whole duplex building.
everything, half their employees, they're going to request that about 50% of their workforce now work remotely going forward. You know, those are key changes and the kind of things we're definitely going to see going forward. So just to give others an opportunity to talk, I'll rest there for now. I hope that answers the question, Winifred.
Thank you very much. That was very detailed. I'm sure the person who asked will be very happy regarding the software and all the technological support that is possible in the legal space. So I'm going to go to Nkiru and Jimmy. Nkiru, I know you were keynote speaker at the Google event, so we'll keep coming back to you for a lot of the questions around technology and all that. But apart from that, I'm also aware that in your former life, you had something to do with Virgin Atlantic. So there's a question from one of our participants about the aviation industry. And really, this is for everybody else. While I want Nkiru to start, I would like us all to chip in, you know, because we want everybody who's participated in this session to get benefit from it. So I'd like you to answer that question. It wasn't previously planned, but it popped up and I thought it's important. So the question is around the change and how this has affected the aviation industry and what we think, just in terms of given all the conversations we've had around the change and all that, what do we think? What is the future for them? How can they bounce back with their people, their infrastructure, their technology? So I'd like Nkiru to start, followed by Jimmy, and then Funke and Chinyere, please chip in, and then I'll advise us on how to go from then on, watching our time.
Thanks, Winifred. And you are right. I'm quite passionate and still passionate about the aviation sector. And I was talking to a friend of mine and an old colleague of mine who is chief in IATA, and we were just lamenting the loss. The loss is literally unbelievable. But I think that in a lot of ways, things change and things remain the same. So when you think about the sorts of pandemics or social issues that we have, that sector is always the first hit, and they go all the way straight to ground zero. So I feel like they will be in ground zero for a while, and probably in its place, the cargo sector, because now we can't physically move ourselves, but the cargo sector will see an uplift. And even as most countries have shut the airspace, shut the borders, there's a lot of cargo going through across, especially from the medicals. And I know in a few African countries, food is also going across borders. So human passengers or human commuting will shift to cargo for a while, but I'm confident that they'll return. But I'll tell you something else that I think, just in the spirit of innovation. If you look at Virgin with all its problems, they started selling an experience about going to the galactic. I mean, it sounded weird, but I kind of feel like there's a lot that's going to come out of that. So yes, there will be people seeking those extraordinary experiences to the galactic, because obviously there are not lots of human interaction in that sphere. But I think people would start simulating experiences and selling them. So you would come and want an upper class, as an example, experience, and you sit somewhere and they'll simulate the experience. And you have all the onboard champagne and all the meals and all the things, and that will be it for a while. But will they bounce back? Yes, I believe that they'll bounce back. Will they bounce back in the short term? I think that in the short term, cargo would do well, much rather than human commuting. It will take a while, but they will come back. I'm so confident, because it still remains one of the safest and the quickest ways to fly. But my message is, out of this setback would be lots of new innovations where we're selling physical experiences on ground. Thanks, Winnie.
Thank you, Jimmy. Any contributions to that?
All right, well, I mean, like Nkiru said, I mean, I doubt, I mean, I can't imagine, for example, for the life of me, that I will not be able to travel to South Africa to see Nkiru, for example, or to America for vacation or something like that. I think that one of the abilities of man that we must not undermine is his, and when I say his, I'm not speaking from a gender point of view now, the ability to be able to create solutions in the face of challenges. And I think that we probably would have new ways and faster ways to test for passengers, for example, to come on board. There might be new spacing you know, or, you know, I mean, there's going to be some sort of innovation. Now, I don't know what that is. It's not really my sphere. It's not really my area. But I think that, you know, even just beyond the travel agent, you know, industry, other similar industries are going to come up with innovative ways. So let me go again to my famous event. How about creating something where for the events where people come, you can almost certify as it were, maybe to a 95% that all your guests that are allowed to come in, all right, beyond just putting the thermometer or whatever to their head, are tested and are corona-free. I mean, people are probably going to show up at that kind of event if your brand says we can give that kind of promise. So I'm looking forward to it because I think that there's going to be a lot of innovation that would shock us, you know. And so when we're talking about the new norm, I don't think that social interactions will end. I think that we'll just modify how we go about it. I've said, for example, and then take into education, because people are saying, oh, what if people start having schools online? My wife and I are having a conversation, and I said, you know what, even with online, eventually I'll still want my children, because they're teenagers, I need them to have social interaction, because there's something you can lose, because there's research, for example, that shows about some challenges that homeschooled kids can have. All right, the ability to be able to interact with people, you know, physically. You know, it's easier to talk to people when you can't see them, when it's one-on-one and all of the other. So these are the things that are there. So I'm looking forward to the future. I think it's going to be new. It's going to be interesting, but we'll be fine.
Thank you. Funke and Chinyere, anything to chip in quickly before I go to our last two questions, which interestingly are for both of you as well.
Thank you very much, Winifred. I think that in addition to what Nkiru and Jimmy have said, which I fully agree, I think that there would be, you know, there are some predictions also around the future. And I think it was Deloitte that predicted 4 possible futures, and this future, possible futures are defined by value. So there's going to be a capitalist future, a barbaric future. There are 4 different types of futures that they talk about. And the core of it is value. So it's going to be about what other type of value or expression of value can the aviation industry present or provide? And that's where the innovation is going to come into place. I predict, or I see, that there would potentially be business combinations and partnerships. So the aviation industry has built capability already in certain areas. I mean, I fly an Emirates, not just because it's an airline, but because of the experience that comes with an Emirates. Mm-hmm. And customer experience continues to be sector agnostic. Customer experience continues to be a capability for the future. Customer experience continues to be a leading parameter for the future. So the question is, with this capability already comfortably sitting in the heart and the know-how and the DNA of an Emirates, so they bring it to table on a partnership endeavor. And the question would be, who would be in dire need of customer experience? Who would be in dire need of the hospitality experience or hospitality capability that the aviation industry have? I would imagine that there will be sectors that will be in such, you know, dire need of upscaling very quickly in these areas. I foresee partnership. I foresee, if you like, I foresee products type partnerships that will emerge in the near future, and that would come, you know, essentially the aviation industry is one of such industries that would see that happen. I also know that yes, cargo would be the immediate default, but beyond would be, I mean, they already have huge investments in passenger planes, huge investment. Even if they let all the employees go today, the truth of the matter is that the infrastructure will still remain, you know, where it is, and that is the sunken cost. So I think that there would be a lot of, I don't have the specific answers, but there will be innovation, there will be partnerships, there will be business combinations, there would be offset, there will be value created in offsetting what you call already existing existential capabilities that these industries that appear to be the losers today, because on one side they're the losers, on one side they're the winners, and in the middle they're the intermediaries, or those who are rightly intermediate space to say we're neither here nor there. But if we draw from here, we could be better. If we draw from there, we could be better. I see that aviation, other industries, in particular aviation, would gradually move away from the loser space into that intermediate space by seeking out combinations and seeking out partnerships. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chinyere, any contribution?
Yes, I totally agree, Funke. I think that sometimes you don't have to overthink it. I think that being in the service industry, or indeed if it's a physical product that you're providing to the public or to your customers, sometimes it's best you remain in that particular space. It's all about the customer experience. I know for a fact that the world isn't going to continue without any travel. At some point, people are going to want to move from one country to the other, even as it is now, with the restrictions being lifted from time to time. Travel does exist or has started to occur. However, the truth is, how do you give the customers the confidence to use your services whilst maintaining safety? That will be the challenge for them to answer. But like I said, sometimes it's best not to even move away or too much from what your core area is. For example, I'll give you an example of the medical services. Hospitals, for example, are really affected by the crisis. You could say maybe pharmaceuticals and the medical device companies are thriving. However, hospitals are really hit hard. One, because people have to keep away from the hospitals in order not to catch the virus, or indeed, they're limiting their service. So what some hospitals are doing now is that they're moving into telemedicine. So what the virus or the pandemic has done is that it has moved, it's scaled up maybe about 5-10 years from the time it would have taken the healthcare sector in Nigeria to move into telemedicine big time, because that's the next best thing for the hospitals. Hospitals do provide the social service of looking after us, but it is also a business. So they do have to think out of the box. And telemedicine is the next best thing, whereby you can do your consultations remotely. I also give the example of restaurants, for example, who are all shut at the moment, along with other service providers or organizations. And they have all these goods in their warehouses, products and all that, which they were using to service their customers. And then they move into the delivery of the food. You understand? So what I would like to see going forward is moving from taking orders to creating an app that you can use to take the order. Still, I guess, hinging on technology. And so I think it's going to be really, really interesting times again. And then the last thing I want to say is that in terms of, we keep saying people need to innovate, we need to innovate. What is innovation? Innovation is basically seeing a problem and thinking out a solution. But you have to be able to think in order to get that eureka moment that creates that new solution to a problem. And one of the issues we're having is that a lot of people don't have time to sit down and think, where you block out everything else happening around you and you actually apply those your, deep thought into creating a solution. So that will be my advice to everybody in leadership, where it seems like the services your organization is providing may become obsolete in the future. Spend some time, go on a retreat. And the retreat isn't just being in your house. I mean, if you can't carve out a space where you're not disturbed by things around you, that's not really a retreat. Look to go into a retreat where you can actually think out solutions, and something will definitely come to you. To think that humanity started and there were no airplanes, but now it's like, it's old history. Think about the time when humanity started and people couldn't fly. Somebody thought up that solution. So I think the answers are out there.
Great, thank you. I don't know if Pat, my partner, is here. She tried to start the program at the start, but I just want to say this on her behalf, that this has been brought to us on the strength of the Inspired Women of Worth Network, of which I'm a proud member. Thank you so much, IWOW. And this has been ongoing we've had previous sessions before, and I know that we're not about to slow down. And I want to use this opportunity to appeal to the iWow network to consider something on social media, digitalization. There's been a lot of emphasis on that it's going to be one of the next big things. We have to do a session on that. A few things that were said that I don't want us to forget before I go to the last two questions, which I deliberately left for last because I think they're at the foundation of everything we've spoken about. Somebody mentioned on the platform that a couple of companies allow employees to take their workstation home just so that they can operate more efficiently from home, when we talked about buying the right seating arrangement and all of that. So that's a tip for us to consider, HR practitioners in the house. Somebody talked about roles being redefined instead of having layoffs. That's also something people may want to consider. I just picked those up and didn't want us to miss that. So the last two things that I would want my panelists to please touch on before we wrap up. I want, and I'm going to tell a little secret here. Funke Amobi and I used to work together, and she was so heavy on performance management that at a point we started calling her Mama GST. GST being the acronym for the performance platform they'd called Growing Stronger Together. So why I want her to touch on performance, how employees can maintain performance in the new world, is because clearly everything has changed. At the end of it, we want profitability for the companies, for ourselves, for SMEs. Everybody wants profitability and productivity. So I want us to talk about how performance can be managed and driven in the new world. And I'd like Mrs. Chinyere Okorocha as well to talk on how small businesses can change their business model to survive in the new world. I mean, we've said all these fancy things, a lot of technology, a lot of training, a lot of upskilling, but they're the SMEs that are just starting, right? And so may not really have the funds and all of that to go into all this. So how can they safely remodel their business model to something to give them some level of sustainability while they grow? So those two questions, and of course, I'd like Jimmy and Nkiru to chip into it, and then we'll wrap up. So over to Funke Amobi on performance.
Thank you very much, Winifred. Winifred and I come a long way where our souls beat together. So performance management, another very passionate spot for me. Performance and productivity management is what I like to call it now. For some time, thinking about the future of HR, I said to myself, it's no longer going to be just performance management system. It's really going to be performance and productivity. And when I came upon that construct, or started thinking along that construct, I didn't know then that pandemic was coming. This was very early this year. I didn't realize that we're going to be sitting here talking about how do we measure differently. Now, it's a very simple approach to it that I like to preach. What are the matters arising? The matters arising is what we're measuring and how we're measuring it. So the matters arising would be shifting from setting our goals in the traditional SMART way, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, to what we call context-based. So we're setting goals in the context. For example, when we had to trigger remote working, and I keep saying remote working is not new, in some industries, as we said earlier in the session, but it's new in some industries. But remote working for the entire enterprise at the same time is absolutely new. So you find that, never have we had the experience of industries shutting down from A to Z and everyone working remotely. The first thing that was hit was performance management and the ability of human capital to respond to supporting the system to ensure that the performance management system will continue to work. And the first place to check in on was the goals set. Did we have goals that had become obsolete because of the how work now has to be done? So if I had to do, if you set goals for me that was physical in nature, I put in quote physical, then it means that you'd have to transit the goals to what I call digital goals, transit the goals to ensure that my goals get crafted in a smart way, in the manner in which I would deliver them. If I'm now running digitally, and as such, I'm unable to generate for you those physical outcomes, it is to say, let's remodel our goals so that they are output-based. So it is, what are we looking for in the performance management? performance management in a digitally enabled world is pretty simple. What are your concerns? Productivity. So how clearly, it's clear to the employee and the line manager what needs to be done in the context, in my new world. I'm digitally enabled. I'm digitally delivering service. I'm digitally engaging the customers. I'm digitally providing value. So you must ensure that my goals are crafted in that manner such that you can measure my ability to deliver digitally, and you can measure and reward my ability to leverage on what the digital space can do for me to deliver on that goal. So the first area of attention to me would be setting the goals appropriately, aligning it with what the employees now need to do in a technology-enabled enterprise. And you would find that it's very simple. You know, thinking that, oh, people just show up for meetings on the digital environment and leave meetings is all that you require. No, so you'll be measuring the wrong things, or attendance of meetings. No, it is what do you require from that meeting. So it's ensuring our goals and indeed what we are measuring is output-based. When we get output-based, to be honest, we'll be less worried about the how. You'll be less worried about, am I sure this employee is working? Am I sure these teams are working? They're at home, in the remote areas of their, comfortable homes. How far? I can't even see them. I can't even, I can't feel their pulse. Even online, I'm not even sure they're connected. You'll be less worried about all that. Believe me, I said consistently, the biggest issues with line managers, talking about productivity, the myth around with productivity dip because we're working remotely. I consider them myths. And one of those myths is, hey, how can I be sure that without face-to-face supervision and interaction, my team members will deliver on the agenda? It's a myth. And the earlier, in my view, team managers begin to think around, how do I set clear goals specific to the context in which my employees are to be delivering this? Secondly, how do I provide coaching support as a line manager within the context of this digitally enabled environment? So I'm not saying because we're not in the office and we can't set up one-on-one meetings, we're setting up one-on-one meetings enabled by technology. Paying attention to where does the employee require performance support and ensure that performance coaching continues regardless of the platform on which work is being done. And then thirdly, measured in an output, or if you like, outcome-based measure, such that I can say this is the outcome we require. And do we have it? Yes. Then productivity has happened. Because indeed you contextualized your what in a very clear form. And it was clear to the employee, clear to the line manager, and you are able to provide support for performance. Three things. One, effective goal setting contextualized in the environment in which work is being delivered. Second, performance coaching by the line manager, ensuring that support is provided for the employee to deliver on the performance goals. And thirdly, ensuring that we're output/outcome focused and outcome based. We're tracking the outcome and not the input. And that way, I think performance management would be, because the shift in performance management is not a mega shift. It's strictly still going to continuously be, you plan the performance, you evaluate, you review the performance, you support the performance, and then you evaluate the performance, and then you reward the performance. So it's not a cyclical shift. The turn is still going to be the same. The sequence of events we plan, we do, we review will continue to be the same. It is the little details of the specific methodology that would change, ensuring that we're setting the goals with the context in mind, ensuring that performance coaching is shifted to the platforms where it should be happening, and ensuring that indeed we are delivering for outcome and output, and we're rewarding the delivery of outcomes and outputs. Thank you.
Chinyere Okorocha here.
Sorry, I didn't hear you for a minute there.
All right, thanks. Good to have you back on. Just in wrapping up, because we have barely 10 minutes to wrap up, please just share with us, small businesses, how can they change their model to survive post-COVID? You know, we spoke about so many fancy things, technology and all. So what can they do realistically within their size? Yes. Yes, over to you.
Okay, so I think that first and foremost, they have to have a digital presence. You'd be surprised at the number of small businesses that don't even have websites that describe what they do or what service or product it is they're offering the public. So I really think it's very important that you have a digital address, which is basically your website. That's something that they can do. And that website has to be done professionally so that you use appealing technology, appealing terminology to describe what it is that you do. I also think that it's not just the website. There's so many digital platforms now where small businesses are using to showcase their products and services and actually make sales. So it's very important that you get, if you go to Instagram, for example, there's a lot of chatter, yes, but in between that, Nigeria has come of age. That's the truth, So if there's a way you can structure your products so that you can have a presence there to appeal or connect with your target market, I would suggest that you do so. Obviously, if you're selling products, you have to use, I even hear that Amazon can deliver to Nigeria now, but we have our own local ones, Jumia, and what are the other ones? Find a way to get your products there so that you can reach as many people as is possible. Visibility is going to be key. Conga, thank you very much. Yes, visibility is key. There's one thing to have a fantastic product that you want to bring to the public. Gigi, okay, now I'm hearing all of them, but if nobody is seeing it, then what is it all about? So you have to have a strategy about becoming visible post-COVID. And of course, your whole branding strategy goes around that in terms of becoming visible and all that. Then, like I said, the law practice, which is the place where I'm playing, is evolving. And even though I'm a lawyer, I have done my share of business school training. So if you can, I would say that you improve your skill set in terms of business management, in terms of sales, and in terms of marketing. Put you in the proper mindset. I also think that you do some introspection as to the type of services or products that you're offering the public and see where the need is. Again, I'll go back to the three main things I said. You have to provide a solution to a problem that you think the public would want. And that solution, because obviously the buyer's mind shift or the customer's mind shift has changed, and the spend of people is going to be directed to those things that are most important to them. If you can identify what that need is, then you know that people will buy your product. We were speaking to that, someone mentioned something today. So one that came to my mind was that, when you're in the elevator and you want to press the button, nobody's using their finger to press the button anymore. If someone can devise some instrument or appliance that you can use to press the button remotely or to control it from your phone, even though that leaves you open to hacking, those are the kind of thinking that we have to have. The people are almost germophobic now. Everybody is about germs and viruses and bacteria. How can we think of services and goods that speak to that? So a solution-oriented business, also the business has to be made available, something that you can scale up. And then it has to be affordable. Nobody has any extra money now. And people will only, use your local, okay, I don't know, I couldn't say, it has to be something that is affordable so that people will be able to pay for whatever it is you put out there. Then one last thing I want to say is that
the topic we chose is a fantastic one, or that we were given, that IWOW has chosen. But I just wanted to tie it a bit to the Nigerian economy, because we're not in a bubble. And everybody is aware of what is happening in the country today. Oil prices are down. Recession is knocking at the door. There's almost talk about, of course, Nigeria is borrowing here, there, and everywhere. You know, so even the most viable business will be challenged in the years ahead. And so on a personal level, I want to advise everybody to do some sort of financial planning, because I truly believe that tougher times are ahead, and that we have to personally build up some resilience to what is coming in the years ahead, before the Nigerian economy is able to stabilize, somewhat diversify from that oil that has almost driven us, you know, clouded our thinking. Let's put it like that. So I'd like us all to think about a personal financial plan that speaks to our recurrent expenses, our personal expenses, future investments, as well as some sort of philanthropic endeavors. We have to plan. Now is not the time to that long lost thing that cost financial awareness. Yes, it's very important. So those would be my additional thoughts.
Thank you for the bonus tips. I'll take those as your last words as far as this seminar is concerned, obviously. Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes to go. Please look out for the IWOW Leadership Series coming up in May. If you follow the Inspired Women of Worth Network and Mrs. Okonjo, who is the founder, you'll know that she, and indeed the IWOW Network, are very passionate about leadership. So there's a whole series coming up in May on leadership. I'd please like to ask Jimmy and Nkiru to give us their last words. Chi, thank you very much. I'll take that as your final contribution. Let's just have a few more stuff from Jimmy and Nkiru in 2 minutes, and then we can wrap up. Thank you. Jimmy, over to you. You need to unmute your mic.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's allowed me to do that now. It wasn't allowed to do that earlier. All right, thank you very much. I mean, I've learned a lot even on this platform today. Just a few things. Last words about for small businesses, what they can do. The first thing they need to do is to speak to their current client and identify their new needs. Okay, because there are certain new needs I have as a business owner that not have a month ago. So number one is to speak to them to identify their new needs and see how you can meet them. Number two is that in trying to scale or in trying to go online, pay for expert advice or consulting. An expert is not the person who makes the best speech, but has done it before and that can do it again. Be careful. There's a market for uninformed small business owners that people go and just cheat them of money because they are eager, they have a bit of liquidity, but they don't know what it is that it requires. So please ensure that you know what you're getting into. The last one I'll say is that the benefit of being small is that you're adaptable, and that, you know, what you want to do is don't sell just what you have, sell what people need. The problem about many small businesses are sometimes are very passionate about our business and our business model, but sometimes what you're passionate about is not what people need. So keep your passion, keep pushing that, but if you want to stay in business, sell what people need and you'll do well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can't see Nkiru. Nkiru, if you're here, please come on. Funke Amobi, let me come to you. Oh, great. Nkiru is here. Nkiru, any last words from you, please?
I mean, I won't go through or back to the subjects that you've put out. I think just in closing, I often say that you never share learnings without learning yourself. So I think it's thanks to the panelists for all the knowledge shared. I'm personally wrapping up much enlightened. I think the last thing is the audience. There's a lot of talking going on. And I mean, I hear people say that it's a bit too much. I actually don't. I think that you never stop learning. But I'd like to leave everyone with this charge. And the charge is, please go out and lead yourself. Take all of these conversations that we have frequently and all the webinars and the sessions that you join, put them into action and then lead yourself so that obviously you can lead the world. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you, Udo. Thank you, IWOW. Really great job and God bless you.
Thank you. You've heard it from the one who does the series on the working girl. Funky, any last words from you?
I'm going to align my last words with Winston Churchill. Never waste a good crisis. You just can't afford to waste this crisis. It has taken everything out of us. To be honest, employees, employers, nations, it has taken everything. It doesn't get better than this. It can't take any more from us. It's taking everything out of us. Never waste a good crisis. Let this crisis not go to waste in your career. Let this crisis not go to waste in your business. Let this crisis not go to waste in your family. Learn is the time to learn, is the time to unlearn, is the time to relearn, is the time to make shifts, is the time to be very, very bold, is the time to be confident, is the time to enable yourself, even if the environment doesn't enable you, is the time not to look at anything that is falling. You know, there's so much out there. Jobs are going to be lost. Recession is coming. You know, there's so much everyone is talking about that could actually put you in a state of trauma. Do not look at those things. It will amount to wasting a good crisis. Thank you.
Wow. Fantastic. Awesome. RPD, are you coming on?
No, just,
yes.
just wanting to say thank you, everyone. What an amazing, wow. Talk about, you know, what Nkiru said, you know, that you never stop learning. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had such a brilliant array of panelists. I've just been, you know, just soaking it all in and taking on board so much. Thank you so much, Funke. You're always amazing. I remember, you know, you introducing us to the future of work at the Chevening Network a few years ago, and then it seemed like forever away. And now, like you say, it's here. And, you know, of course, you know, megastar Nkiru, our very own IWOW trustee, and Chinyere, Jimmy, Tewe, yourself, Winifred. I mean, such an incredible session. You know, I wasn't meant to come in, so I'm not looking like the way you guys are all looking, so amazing. I've been in between, and I'm glad that, you know, we could mute throughout. I've been in between cooking beans. This is the real life. And I'm happy to report that I just got feedback from Hubby that that's the best beans ever made. So thank you, IWOW, for providing the backdrop to that, you know, while doing this. Thank you to everyone that joined, you know, such an incredible session. Got so much from everyone, very practical tips and everything. Thank you, Winifred, for an excellent facilitation and moderation. Thanks all.
All right, thank you. And RPG, we're looking forward to invitation to come and share that beans.
Absolutely.
Thank you, wow. Thank you so much. I've learned myself and, you know, grown from this. Thank you to our audience for staying engaged till the end. And so we had a few more questions. We'll address those on another platform. So I guess we can sign out now. And believe it or not, from my end, I actually have a 6:30 computer class with my 76-year-old mom who wants to be future ready. So I will sign out to go and start that class. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you all for the session. I'm really very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And well done, Winifred. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well done, Winifred. Excellent.
Thank you, Mrs. Funke Amobi. I'm so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been really awesome. Like,
Thank you so much. God bless you all. Bless you all.
Amen. This has been great. Wow. Like, oh my God, this is so great. So awesome. Like, wow. Thank you so much.